The Harry Potter TV reboot is officially in motion, and HBO has started locking in its cast. With major roles like Dumbledore, Snape, and McGonagall now confirmed, we're finally starting to get a sense of the show's direction, and it's already turning heads. Let's break down the confirmed casting choices so far, and take a peek at some of the more talked-about possibilities making the rounds. John Lithgow as Albus Dumbledore. Let's start with one of the biggest names in the mix. John Lithgow stepping into the role of Albus Dumbledore. It's a bold choice, and honestly, one that could completely reframe how the headmaster comes across on screen. Lithgow brings a different kind of presence. He's not just wise and warm. He has this quiet intensity that's hard to fake. In previous roles, he's played everything from affable oddballs to chilling villains, and that range could be exactly what a new Dumbledore needs. What's interesting here is the potential tone shift. Lithgow isn't aiming to recreate the mystical, aloof version we've seen before. Instead, he might bring more emotional depth, even vulnerability. A Dumbledore who feels more human, more conflicted, which actually fits the character's complicated backstory. It's not the casting most people expected, but that might be the whole point. This version of Dumbledore could surprise us. Papa Essiedu as Severus Snape. This one has sparked a lot of conversation. Papa Essiedu potentially taking on the role of Severus Snape. It's a bold direction, and one that could bring entirely new life to one of the most layered characters in the entire Harry Potter universe. Essiedu has proven time and time again that he thrives in emotionally intense roles. From classical theater to gripping dramas, he brings a sharpness and vulnerability that's rare. And that's exactly what makes him such a compelling choice for Snape. Snape isn't just the icy professor with a grudge. He's a man carved out by regret, love, and bitterness. Essiedu could lean into that pain with a quieter, more emotionally exposed performance. One that still holds power, but in a different register than we've seen before. His delivery isn't about raising his voice. It's about silence, control, the weight of everything left unsaid. He could make Snape feel more tragic from the start. Not someone who surprises us with his depth later, but a man whose every cold stare hints at something buried just beneath the surface. This casting could shift how an entire generation sees the character. Nick Frost as Rubeus Hagrid. When it comes to recasting Hagrid, you need someone who can balance warmth, humor, and that slightly chaotic energy. And Nick Frost fits that bill better than you'd think. Frost is best known for comedic roles, but he's always brought heart along with the laughs. He's got the physical presence for Hagrid, sure, but more importantly, he can make the character feel grounded. Not just the big funny guy, but a man who's deeply loyal, kind of insecure, and absolutely obsessed with magical creatures. If this casting goes through, we're likely getting a Hagrid who leans more into awkward charm and less into slow-speaking softness. Think. Emotionally open, quick to panic, and weirdly brave in all the wrong moments. It could be one of the best surprises in the reboot. A version of Hagrid that feels fresh but still captures what fans loved about the character. Janet McTeer as Minerva McGonagall. Janet McTeer brings an unmistakable presence to everything she does. Poised, formidable, and commanding without raising her voice. That makes her an inspired choice to take over as Minerva McGonagall. McGonagall isn't just a teacher. She's the backbone of Hogwarts. Fiercely principled, deeply intelligent, and capable of holding the entire school together when everything else is falling apart. McTeer has long been known for roles that exude quiet strength. She doesn't need theatrics to dominate a scene. She can break someone down with a single glance. What's especially exciting here is her ability to bring emotional layers beneath the surface. McGonagall is not sentimental, but she cares deeply. About her students, about Dumbledore, and about the values of the wizarding world. McTeer could deliver that balance perfectly. A stern exterior with moments of surprising softness. Always controlled, but never cold. Expect a version of McGonagall that feels less whimsical and more rooted in lived experience. Someone who's seen war, loss, and sacrifice, and chose discipline as her armor. Luke Thalon as Professor Quirinus Quirrell. Casting Luke Thalon as Quirinus Quirrell is a subtle but clever move. He may not be the flashiest name on the list, but he's been steadily building a reputation as a serious shape-shifting performer. Exactly what Quirrell demands. Quirrell starts off as a timid, stuttering academic, nervous, awkward, and seemingly harmless. But underneath that bumbling facade is something far more sinister. By the end of the story, we realize he's been hiding Voldemort under his turban the whole time. That duality requires precision, and Thalon has the chops to pull it off. He can play vulnerable without slipping into caricature. And he has the quiet intensity to suggest that there's something lurking beneath the surface, even if the character says otherwise. That's the trick with Quirrell. He has to fool the audience just enough, until the moment he stops pretending. With Thalon in the role, we might get a version of Quirrell that leans more psychological, less comic relief, more chilling undercurrent. He's not just a puppet. He's a man who made a terrifying choice and paid the price for it. Paul Whitehouse as Argus Filch. Paul Whitehouse taking on Argus Filch is one of the more surprising picks in this new lineup. But once you sit with it, it starts to click. Filch has often been played for laughs, the cranky caretaker skulking around with his cat, muttering threats and grumbling about students. But there's always been a darker edge to him. He's not just bitter, he's broken. A squib in a magical world, tasked with maintaining a place he can never truly belong to. Whitehouse, known for his comedy, also has the ability to pivot into something more melancholic and tragic. That combination is essential here. Filch shouldn't be a joke, he should be uncomfortable. Pathetic, yes, but also strangely menacing in his obsession with rules and punishment. There's a tragic element to him that hasn't always been explored. With Whitehouse in the role, we could see a more grounded, pitiful version of Filch. One who lashes out not because he's cruel, but because he's been excluded from the world he's tasked with protecting. It's less cartoon, more character study, and it might surprise a lot of viewers. A quick heads up. The next few chapters aren't confirmed. These are casting conversations happening behind the scenes and across the fan community, some based on early reports, others on speculation. Either way, they're interesting enough to explore. Ben Barnes as Sirius Black. Ben Barnes has been a favorite in fan circles for the role of Sirius Black for years. With casting still ongoing for many of the key adult characters, his name continues to come up. And for good reason. Sirius is one of the most emotionally complex characters in the series. He's Harry's godfather, yes, but also a man shaped by trauma, betrayal, and years of psychological isolation. He's charming and rebellious on the outside, but underneath that charisma is someone still processing the pain of Azkaban and the loss of everyone he once cared about. Barnes brings exactly that kind of energy. He's portrayed dark, wounded characters before, people who are compelling because of how much they're struggling to stay whole. He also carries the right mix of elegance and recklessness that Sirius requires. He can make the character feel both admirable and deeply flawed at the same time. If HBO wants to lean into the emotional messiness of Sirius, not just his coolness, then someone like Barnes could make that story hit harder than it ever did in the films. Olivia Colman as Dolores Umbridge. Some names get tossed around in casting discussions and instantly feel like a perfect fit. Olivia Colman as Dolores Umbridge is one of those names. Nothing is confirmed, but if HBO were to go in this direction, it could redefine the character in terrifying new ways. Umbridge isn't a loud villain. She's polite, controlled, smiling. And underneath that pastel surface is one of the most sadistic characters in the entire series. That's exactly the kind of layered malice Colman can deliver. She excels at playing characters who appear harmless, even pleasant, until you realize how deeply dangerous they really are. What makes this potential casting so compelling is the contrast. Coleman could make Umbridge feel more grounded, more real, and therefore more disturbing. Less of a caricature and more of an unsettling bureaucrat who genuinely believes she's the hero of the story. It's worth noting that Coleman would be stepping into a role made unforgettable by Imelda Staunton, an actor she also followed in The Crown. If this casting becomes reality, that symmetry alone would add an extra layer of intrigue. Either way, Coleman as Umbridge would not go unnoticed. Peter Capaldi as Garrick Ollivander. If the goal is to make Ollivander memorable from the moment he appears on screen, few actors would be better suited than Peter Capaldi. While this casting hasn't been confirmed, it's hard to imagine a better match. Ollivander is an unusual figure in the wizarding world. He's not warm, he's not exactly kind, but he knows more about wands and magical lore than anyone alive, and he carries that knowledge with an intensity that often borders on eerie. He's one of those characters who says little, but when he speaks, you listen. Capaldi is masterful at that kind of delivery. Whether in Doctor Who or darker roles, he's always had the ability to make a single line feel like it holds ancient wisdom, or a quiet threat. His version of Ollivander could easily feel more arcane, more unsettling, less kind old shopkeeper, and more wand savant with 1,000 secrets. It's a role that could easily be minor, but with the right actor, it becomes unforgettable. Capaldi would make sure of that. Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Aunt Petunia. Of all the casting possibilities being floated, this might be the most unexpected. Phoebe Waller-Bridge as Petunia Dursley. Known for her biting wit and emotionally layered performances, she seems like an unusual pick, until you look at Petunia a little more closely. Petunia isn't just the mean aunt who locked Harry in a cupboard. She's a woman shaped by resentment, jealousy, and rejection. She grew up watching her sister be chosen by a magical world she was excluded from. That bitterness didn't appear out of nowhere. It festered over years, quietly, until it hardened into cruelty. Waller-Bridge could bring that internal world to life in a way we've never really seen before. She has a talent for playing characters who are emotionally messy, deeply insecure, and often lashing out in ways that hide their pain. With her in the role, Petunia wouldn't just be angry. She'd be tragic. It would be a very different take, and that's exactly why it could work. A Petunia who doesn't ask for sympathy, but earns understanding, could add an emotional weight to Harry's early years that the films never fully explored. Final thoughts. With a lineup this stacked, HBO is clearly aiming to reimagine the wizarding world with serious acting power behind it. Whether the rumored names pan out or not, the direction is clear. This series wants to go deeper, darker, and smarter than the films had time to. As casting continues and production ramps up, the next few months are going to be packed with reveals, especially once Harry, Ron, and Hermione are announced. If you're into the behind the scenes of this reboot, now's the time to stay tuned. Subscribe for future updates, drop your dreamcast in the comments, and let me know which actor you're most curious or cautious about.